Welcome to the Board Wrap-Up Show for February 2016. We have special guest, Dr. Pennington, not available to be with us, so we've got Bret Smith with Ponca City Public Schools to visit with us about the February board meeting and anything he'd like to add. We appreciate your time, Bret. February board meeting, first of all, I know you like to honor people before the board meeting, and one of my good friends, Rob Fry, was one of those honored. Can you go through that process for us?
I sure can. It's always real exciting whenever we get to honor people who do a good job for us in the Ponca City schools. And like you say, Rob Fry, he's the certified employee of the month, and I think they put a halo on top of his head. They just think the world of him, and he just does a lot of good things for the Ponca City schools and those high school kids, and I think he really likes to help the special ed folks, and they just think the world of him. So we were glad we got to honor him last night. And Tamara Ralston, support employee of the month for child nutrition, and she's been with us for quite a while too. Jeff Denton got to recognize her with a little speech last night, and it was very humbling. And then we have our wonderful volunteers and friends of education, and the St. Paul's United Methodist Math Masters have been doing a lot of really good work, and especially at Union. So Dr. Ressler had got to visit with them a little bit last night and talk about the things they did and the things they do for the children of Union Elementary in the math department.
Very
so that
good.
was awesome.
You bet. Dr. Pennington is not here. He was at the meeting, though, and again, I don't want you to put words in his mouth, but maybe an overview of some of the things he related last night. Obviously, with the legislative session beginning, I know he had a few words to say about that.
Yeah, Dr. Pennington always has a lot to say about the legislature. Mm-hmm. He's very involved in it. You know, as you know, whenever he was the president of the AASA, he really had to get involved in it on not just a local level, but a national level. So that's kind of his cup of tea. Now the legislature, they're working on different things to try to help school districts. They've already taken 3% off of our budget right now, and we feel that there's going to be another one that's coming. Probably this revenue failure that the state of Oklahoma has experienced is going to happen a second time. That's what they're saying, and probably worse the second time than it was the first time. So we don't really know what's going to happen there. And there's not a whole lot of money to be had, and revenue is down. So that's going to be difficult for not just schools, but for the whole state of Oklahoma. So they're trying to figure out a process there. Our budget, of course, because of the revenue failure and the 3% or more before it's all over with, our budget's going to go down. We typically, like most school districts, have a fund balance that we get to start the next school year with. And typically we're about 8 to 10, maybe 12%, depending on the year, of our budget we get to carry over to start the year. You pay salaries, you do those kinds of things to get things started. Well, after this year, it may be closer to 5 or 6%, just strictly because there's not enough money to go around. So we're talking amongst all of our staff, our principals, and our administrators to see where we can cut and what we can do, and be able to still teach students in an effective way, and still try to save that money that we're not going to have next year. So that's always a difficult situation, difficult commentary whenever you talk about budget cuts. I think that there are people or school districts in the state of Oklahoma that may not make it this year, not to mention next year. Some small school districts will really struggle very, very hard.
I know that also part of the discussion on Monday night was the district and maybe some policy changes to students that are transferring at the elementary age.
Yeah, transfers are difficult to do, and you never know exactly who's going to show up and when they're going to show up as far as students are concerned. But one of the problems that we have are local kids or neighborhood kids around a certain elementary. If they register late, even the day of the school starts, they may be full. If they're a third grader and during our transfer meetings that the third grade in that particular school is full, then that neighborhood person can't go to, let's say, Union. If they live in that neighborhood, they'll have to be transferred someplace else. So it makes it difficult, and it just doesn't quite seem fair. So the curriculum committee had really debated on how to do this. So in our transfer meeting, because you really can't get rid of transfers, you're going to have them some way or another. You want siblings together and those kinds of things. And I believe most school districts in the state of Oklahoma have some sort of a transfer process. So the curriculum committee decided that if they kept the transfer meeting to a 93% full rate, that means the principal can start adding transfers into the third grade or the fourth grade or whatever grade it is up to 93% full. That will allow at least 2 empty chairs in each class at every school for those late arrivals, neighborhood kids, so we kind of leave them a spot open. So that way if the third grade, if we've got 2 sections of third grade, there are 2 seats left in each third grade that we can fill if needed. So it makes it a little bit more fair, and I think that's a place to start. We don't know how well it's going to work. It's going to work better than what we have now, which is very time consuming. So we hope it's going to work better this next year, and if it doesn't, we'll make some more changes later.
Brett, we approve the budget or the calendar, I should say, for next year's school.
Mm-hmm. Yes, calendar, is always a fun process. Sometimes it can be difficult, but the calendar, the board went ahead and approved it next year, and so we're going to move on down the road, and things pretty much are just about the same as what we've had in the past.
I think the school start date is August the 17th for next year. You had quite a bit of time to discuss a number of items last night. I'll kind of let you review those for us too.
Very good. Our financial advisor for our bond issue proceeds came last night and explained some resolutions that needed to be taken up with the board last night. And one is to go ahead and determine the maturities of our first phase of our bond issue. As we voted those in, the citizens of Ponca City voted those in, it was done in a 6-year time frame in order to keep our mill levy to 22 mills, which doesn't allow our tax rate to go up, which is always a good thing. We don't want to raise taxes. So in order to get the process started, we needed to sell the first set of bonds to get the Attorney General's approval. Once the attorney looks at the bonds, makes sure they're okay, gives his stamp of approval, then we are able to sell those bonds. Now that's the first set, because we had, like I say, the 6 years or 6 series of those bonds. The rest of them go very easily at that point, because the first one's done, the rest of them ought to be just fine. So the board did that last month, and so the rest of the first series, which is an additional, the first month was 1.3 million, and the rest of the series is about $5 million, which would include $1 million in transportation costs for that bond. So we had to get that process completed. So in May, we should receive that money for that first series. With that being said, the other resolutions that our financial company had done for us last night was to tell the board that now we're going to do the lease revenue. The lease revenue bonds allows us to get all the money at one time. And that's approximately $23 million for the rest of our bond projects, building bonds, and for our technology and the projects that I'll speak of here in a moment, and along with the other parts of those bond issues. The trust authority, which is the Kay County Commissioners, they okayed this the lease revenue bonds for us. It's a kind of a pass-through account that goes through a bank, and it gives us all the money. It's kind of confusing a little bit because there's a whole lot to it, but simple whenever we try to explain it. So that resolution allowed that to happen. In the process of giving us the money, we have to complete projects just down the line for 6 years. And so they loan us the money to start the projects, and as we complete what is listed in the resolution when we had the bond vote, as we complete those, then they give us the title to what we've completed, such as all the concrete for the concert hall. Once we complete it, they give us the money and the title for that, so we own it. So it's kind of a pass-through. You give me money, and now then I'm going to give you something once you complete it. So those 2 resolutions took place with our financial advisors, and so we're all set, ready to go. Probably going to sell those bonds towards the end of this month in a couple weeks. So very shortly we'll have that money so we can start all these projects all at one time.
Well, the concert hall is going to be magnificent, but the technology that these bonds are going to bring in also is very exciting, isn't it?
It really is. we started down that road many years ago with technology, and as most people know, once you start with technology, it's hard to stop. We've been a forerunner with our technology infrastructure for a long time, and Jason Ridenour is our director, and he's done a fantastic job of keeping up with technology as it comes to our students. We started the one-to-one initiative several years ago with the laptops, and so we've got them in our secondary schools and all the way through the high school, and that has been fantastic. We've just really enjoyed it, and I think the teachers would, there's just not any way to ever go back to anything else. Promethean boards, we've put a Promethean board in every classroom. Teachers just absolutely love them. Even some of the old timers who didn't have a lot of technology savvy about them. I would be one of those. You learn to use them, and then after a while, you become dependent. But they make things so much easier, and you got so much more to do with them.
Our city is pretty fortunate, Brett, because we are also kind of a forerunner in cities and broadband and the speed of the internet. And I know, talking with city officials, they say, for guys like you and me, speed may not be the most important thing. For those children, though, having a city that has a fast network is very, very important, and it's becoming more important, and it's what companies and it's what parents look for when they move to cities as well.
It's been a nice cooperative with the city and the schools. We get to work together very well, and so the infrastructure within Ponca City includes the Ponca City schools. Testing, as you know, has been kind of a controversy over the last several years with all schools, and has to do with the speed that you mentioned, plus the capacity, and then there's also software issues that I'm sure that come into play. But those technology infrastructure ideas and power and speed is very important, because you've got 1,400 kids at the high school, and if they all get on the computer at the same time, it can plug things up pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You also talked about some change orders, some remodeling that we're going to be doing, and you had to redo some of those contracts as well.
This process with these bond projects, the ones that we did from the 2013 bond issue and the ones that we just passed for the 2015 bond issue, they're moving. And they've been moving pretty fast for a long time. Now that we're really getting on board with the lease revenue bonds that allows us to have all the money at one time, our architect and engineers and our construction managers are just working around the clock to get these things going. So last night wasn't any different. It almost seemed like it was the Bret Smith show last night, just because of all the items that I had on there. So we kind of tease each other, in that regards. But we accepted bids for our administration seminar room, which is the old band room in this building. That room is going to be a professional development area that we can use for professional development for our teachers, as well as substitute teacher training. As you know, we have lots of substitute teachers, and we need a larger space in order to get that accomplished. We knew that room upstairs was going to be developed as a professional development space, and we're just calling it the seminar room right now, and we didn't get to do that in phase one of this renovation project. The money just wasn't there. So now we're going to go ahead and go forward with that. And we had the walls put up, and we had insulation and a few odds and ends, but now we're going to go ahead and finish that. It's going to be a great space in order to have large participation in training for our teachers and staff. We found out last year, even though that we had a couple extra rooms here utilizing the boardroom and one of our other conference rooms, that we needed more space. So those bids came in, and so the board approved those last night, so we can continue with it.
One more question maybe about the bond issue that we passed in October. It really wasn't a fair question then. It may not be a fair question now, but when do you think we're going to see some breaking of ground and some of those issues, some of those buildings start to go up in our district, Brett?
To see breaking ground such as the concert hall, or the stuff at the athletic facility, the athletic end of our campus, you're going to get to see those in the next year and a half or 2 years. We have started the process on the developing those designs and the plans to get them done. This summer, a lot of those bond proceeds are going to go to projects and get those completed this summer. And they're going to be fast and furious, of course, because we've got to get them started just as soon as school's out, and we've got to have them ready by the time school starts in the fall. The windows over at East Middle School. We're going to replace all those old windows over there and put some insulated windows in. Helps with our energy consumption, and then new HVAC as well. That's going to be this summer. You don't get to see a lot of that, but you will at East Middle School, because we try to put things back together in such a way that they look like what they did when we first built them. And most of the windows in our district were white framed, so we're going to go back with something of that nature over there. So you'll get to see that. Lincoln Elementary, you get to see things that we're going to do on the front entrance of it to make it safe, like we're doing with the rest of the elementaries, making those safe vestibule areas so that we can control entrance and be able to vet people before they actually come into our buildings. Liberty is also going to be done this summer. That was a 2013 bond issue. So that will be the completion of that bond issue. Trout is currently being done right now, and that's also a 2013 bond issue. So, I've got lots of lists and schedules for all these projects. So they're going to happen very fast. I'd mentioned earlier that we've got a 6 series bond, but we're very aggressive. The board wants to get it done because of the construction climate now is the prices are a little cheaper. Mm-hmm. So we'll probably have all of this completed in 3 years instead of 6. So that makes it exciting to see something come up pretty fast.
Absolutely, and that's more bang for your buck as well.
Absolutely.
But when we vote on these things, people think sometimes they're excited. They think the next day ground will break, and it doesn't work that way with school bonds, does it?
It really doesn't. And I had to defend that question several times when we passed the bond issue, because you're right. Immediately I say, when are we going to get started? When is it coming up? We're excited about it. And to be honest with you, I am too. But like I mentioned, we have to go through the legal process and the funding. So you have to go through the process at the state level, you have to go through the funding over at the county level, and then you have to wait for the check to arrive, then you have to order things, you have to go through the bidding process. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it takes quite a bit whenever you can look at all the ideas that you have to go through.
Absolutely. I'll let you kind of finish up here about a few other things that you want to mention.
All right. We accepted the elevator bid for Liberty Elementary. We bid that project last month and the board approved it, but we didn't have any elevator bids. So we rebid those, and ThyssenKrupp was the winner of that one. We've got that company in some of our other buildings, so they approved that bid. So now then the guaranteed maximum price for that project was also approved at $661,000, and that, like I say, puts some ADA, solves some ADA problems with Liberty, and gets that safe entry that we talked about earlier. Roosevelt and East Middle School are also going to have a new entry, safe entry, built this summer as well. East was our very first school that we put a safe entry in, but ideas change and situations change throughout the years. So now that it was the first one, we've got to upgrade it to make it even safer. We thought we did a good job the first time, but it wasn't what we were doing to all the other schools. So we're going to upgrade that one. And then Roosevelt doesn't have a safe entry, so we're going to build it. So that was one of the things the board approved last night. And then we had change order number 4 for Trout Elementary School. When you get into projects, you find things that you didn't know were there, or things crop up that were unexpected, so you end up with change orders. Some are negatives. We decide we don't have to do this because it's not there what we thought was there, or vice versa, and we have to add things. So this change order added another $13,000 to the project. The highest cost of part of that anyway was an underground drainage system. We didn't know was in the way until we got down to it. So after figuring out what we're going to do with our entrance at Trout, that had to move. And it's expensive to move a drain system that's about 10 or 12 inches in diameter and about 6 or 7 feet down. So it takes a little bit to get that accomplished. So they approved the change order number 4 at Trout, and that project is going very well. We've got 5 classrooms added on the end of that building, and they're just about completely dried in. It's going to be a real nice project, and we're real excited about it.
Spring break will be here, and the end of school is not far away, is it?
And that comes very quickly.
I know it does. It's good to see you again, and thanks for filling in for Dr. Pennington, and we appreciate your time, Brett.
Thank you very much.
Bret Smith with Ponca City Schools on the February Board Wrap-Up.